On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk an 8K information session at CEDIA, as well as an AI futurist is holding the keynote. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
This is ResiWeek, episode 393, Miss Cleo. Welcome to another episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matthew Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by three of my good friends. First, we have Katye McGregor-Bennett. She's the president of K&B Communications. How you doing, Katye?
Doing great. Weeks before Expo. You know what it's like.
It's not the week before Expo.
It's in weeks. Like weeks before. Yeah.
Weeks. My apologies.
Plural.
I was gonna say, my calendar got jacked up real fast. Then we have Mr. Jason Knott. He is an evangelist over at D-Tools. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
And last but certainly not least, we have my good friend, Mr. Michael Short. He's the Senior Director of Marketing for Residential with Crestron. How you doing, Michael?
Amazing. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for staying up late to hang out with us. We are going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. A CEDIA Expo panel is going to cover the latest developments in 8K. The real interesting aspect of this is not only are they covering, obviously, the latest developments, but they're coming at it from the 8K Association, featuring executives from IMAX and Amazon Prime, i.e. they're understanding 8K from a content perspective, which is typically is not the way we address this, especially in the resi space. We just talk about how it affects people in the home. Katye, let me start with you on this. How much confusion is there, do you think, between 8K and how we use it in the home versus how it's produced, how that content gets made and then delivered?
Tons. Still, not a new conversation at all. I mean, it's the race to the Ks has been sort of this underlying theme in the industry for ages. But I think that the true understanding and what it really means to what that image looks like on the screen at home in my house compared to your house compared to what I saw at big box retailer, insert name here, versus other promotional material that caused me to buy the thing that I have. I think just generally speaking, there's just not a lot of common understanding for exactly what I jokingly say, what do the Ks mean? And to me as an end user, what am I seeing? What am I experiencing? At what level do I need to engage, and what does that mean from a technology standpoint? Saying that is, I don't know. I mean, it's quite a big concept to deliver, and if you just enjoy content and don't necessarily need to scrutinize it, common consumers don't necessarily, they're not going to dip down into this either. So I think it makes a lot of difference to us on the industry side of it. But I think what's really important and what the takeaway from a show like this is, how do we take this information from an input perspective and turn it around so that the people that we serve and that we're continuing to educate and inspire to buy technology from us and our group in the future, how do we take this knowledge and spin it in such a way that it is meaningful and it does matter and it does create a buying conversation for the future that doesn't confuse the consumer into such a thing of like, it's this tech stuff is just all too confusing, I don't care anyways. That's the last thing we need, right? So I think it is really important, but I think it's how do we get there that's in the conversation that's really compelling to me, of course, as a communicator. So I don't know that I answered your question per se, but that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, close enough. We're fine. Jason, what kind of, as I alluded to in the intro for it, I'm very impressed that this is coming from the content aspect, right? We don't typically see this, especially in the residential space. I'm used to it from the NAB, the National Association of Broadcast side, where they don't care how you're going to view it per se. It's all about the content and what that pipeline looks like and how they get it to the house. And then what the house does with it, not that they don't care, but they don't really care. Will this bring a much better understanding of how we're going to use 8K or how to effectively use 8K in the home because we're finally going to see it from the content side?
I'm glad that CEDIA is continuing this. If you recall, we did a session last year at CEDIA Expo that had that talked about the potential for integrators to be content providers, meaning that at some point CEDIA Expo itself would have Netflix, would have YouTube, would have all of these disparate systems. Because think about right now what you have to do. How many different services do you have to watch the NFL? If you wanted to watch every game, you would have to have Prime, you would have to have YouTube, you would have to have the NFL. Everything got Apple, everything got disseminated and displayed, and it made it ultimately super confusing for the consumer. Who's the people that take something that's complicated and make it simple for the consumer? The integrator. So the premise last year in our session was that content providers at some point will be turning to integrators to simplify, create interfaces, create package solutions, an NFL interface via Crestron or whatever it might be that takes all these different ways to watch the NFL and puts it all together into a simple interface for the customer. I love the fact that they're picking up on this. I also like that 8K Association is doing this. If anybody hasn't had a chance to check it out, their website's very informative. They've got a lot of really good technical information regarding 8K, where the panels get from, why an 8K TV costs so much more than a 4K TV. What is the difference in the cost there, structure? So it's a really informative, but this is just another leap. And who knows, 5 years from now, we could see some of those NAB content providers actually at CEDIA Expo talking to integrators about package solutions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Michael, let's address the somewhat elephant in the room. 8K is awesome, and obviously there are displays that are made for 8K content. There's not a ton of 8K content available, obviously, yet. Are we as an industry, and obviously like from the manufacturing standpoint, are we truly ready for a fully functional 8K solution?
I think we can be reasonably quickly if the content became available, because you have to be. You think about when 4K happened, TVs were extremely expensive. We started talking about 4K distribution, going through the whole process with digital media and how we'd use 4K. But very quickly, as more content becomes available and as consumers want to take that content in, we as manufacturers get up to speed quickly. And we certainly are working on and have solutions that are going to be ready for 8K and will be certainly ready to go. I think that it will all depend on the content, though, because you look at now, YouTube and Vimeo is probably the only place you can get the most 8K content. And you're talking about direct smart TVs there versus distributing it from your Apple TV potentially or other devices. So, the content is going to be really important. Japan, I think, had the Tokyo Olympics in 8K, if I remember rightly.
In OTA
2020.
8K. It was insane.
Yeah, insane. Absolutely insane. And, so I think to answer from a manufacturing standpoint, yeah, we'll be ready and we'll get there. But this is why it's really interesting to see this as a content-led discussion at CEDIA, because that's where I believe we need to be thinking, what type of content are consumers going to be consuming first? You're talking about virtual reality now is mainly looking to be in 8K. So are we actually talking about Netflix an Amazon first, or is it going to be those games rooms where consumers want to have 8K content in those specialty rooms? So we'll obviously be ready, but I do think for the first time in how I can remember, the content first. It's really interesting, and I love that the discussion is being led that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. So check that session out if you happen to be in Denver. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today. AI and technology futurist Scott Steinberg is delivering the keynote at Expo 2023. If you don't know Steinberg, he's going to be speaking on the unstoppable AI revolution that's coming to the home. All right, I am going to get this out of the way right off the top. I absolutely detest futurists. I have been in multiple keynotes, both for our trade and others, with futurists, and they're ridiculous. They remind me of Miss Cleo from the 90s. If you are a 90s kid, you will get that reference. If you are young like Michael, you may not. But I hate futurists. Now, that out of the way. All right, Jason. Is AI in the home going to come in more than just little spurts to our industry? I get AI will come into the house. I fully embrace that and expect that. I question how much it will come in through our industry. Am I wrong on that?
So it's interesting. Out at ISC West, the security show in the spring, there was quite a bit of integration between security cameras. I believe you and I have talked about this before, security camera technology and AI. I believe that is going to be the from in terms of technology in our industry. I think that the security camera level is going to be the first entree, because the way that the AI could interpret what was happening in the image and then create notifications to law enforcement without somebody having to watch the image and interpret what's going on was incredible and would speed up response. So I was super impressed by that. And I believe, I think we'll see AI in the security camera booths. I would recommend that. Obviously, there's the simple areas of AI helping you from your website, maybe creating some content for your website and those sorts of things at the marketing level that integrators might be able to utilize also. One glimmer of hope for the future is for Scott Steinberg. I did go kind of check out in his website, and it looks like he doesn't just focus on the futurist from a technology standpoint, but he also really delves into small business and particularly how it's going to help small businesses. And he tries to really kind of drill down. So knowing that this audience is predominantly made up of small businesses, I think there's a glimmer of hope there that he won't be Miss Cleo.
I'll attend, with an open mind 100%. I'll just still have a very hard time getting Miss Cleo out of my head through the entire thing. Michael, and just before we move on, and I'm going to be nitpicky with this, and you can tell me I'm wrong. The majority of the security camera stuff is machine learning. It's not AI. I know they sell it as AI. It's machine learning. Anyways.
Well, that's another topic in and of itself, Matt, that you keep poking on, is that AI versus machine learning, right? So
that's a whole other
that
conversation.
is a whole other conversation and worth doing a dive into.
95% of it's machine learning. It's not AI, but it's cute that AI just is a much better tagline.
Yeah.
Michael, is this going to be the domain of essentially the GAFAs of the world? Is AI going to come into the house through Alexa or through something from Apple or something from Facebook, from Meta, versus, the only company I know that is actively using any form of AI in our space right now is Josh AI dropped a version that has ChatGTP built into it, or as an extension layer built onto it. Do you foresee this being driven heavily by essentially like the GAFAs of the world?
I think they will find DIY mass home implementation of this in one way or another, because, you know, whether it's bringing ChatGPT into Alexa, there are going to be ways that they'll quickly be able to implement certain elements, but I don't think it will be a true driver of the industry. I think where we can get huge value from a technology standpoint here is through things like smart home health monitoring, let's say. So looking at how AI can monitor our sensors, and looking at detecting anomalies in the home, whether it's potential health issues through air quality, through movement of people, through water, and analyzing that data through health monitoring in the house, because those little things are really, really smart, but that's difficult AI. That is something that we would really require companies to be focused on. Predictive maintenance, analytics of your smart home, all those things can be powered and analyzed really well through AI, because we know you can mass input loads of lines of data to then bring out really simplistic results and answers. So I think the true benefits here are going to come when we start thinking about how we can layer AI into that type of analysis. But I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, the Alexas or the Googles of the world doing some sort of AI manipulation. I think the camera and security aspect is really interesting. But again, is that machine learning versus AI? But it's here to stay. It's happening.
Yeah.
Right. We are going to see AI in this space in the future. But I wanted to touch on something that Jason was saying. Right now, I think in our industry, if we can educate our dealer channel on how to use AI to help their business growth, marketing, I mean, I really, you know, I'm hoping that what they talk about during the keynote, and I know there's an event happening pre-CEDIA as well, is how can our dealer community utilize AI to really drive lead generation, to help them develop better websites, help them manage their websites, help them create email communications. There's so much you can do on the marketing side. And that for me is, if I was an integrator right now, I'd be thinking, how can I utilize all these tools to grow my business and make it run more smoothly? And as Jason said, that I know is an element of the conversation that's happening. For right now, that's really powerful. Futurist thinking, I think it will come in. It will. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
How and why, I don't know, but it is going to happen.
All right, Katie, sum this up for us, or wrap this up for us. Put a bow on it, whatever. And you can put on your futures hat for this too.
No, because you hate them.
Good point. All right. Make a informed guess. How about that? What is going to be the market penetration for AI long term? Is this something that we are going to resist collectively, again, just as a society? Or is this going to be the same as the Alexa, where it's like, it can set a kitchen timer when I'm boiling water? I'm cool with it listening to literally everything I say in my house.
I think it's going to be, I think my take on it, just my take, is I think it's going to be very similar to that, and a bit of a hybrid at the same time. You know, I think that to Michael's point, you know, it's already happening. So I think that it is already happening, and it's already very pervasive. There was obviously going to be resistance, just as there is to technology, to online banking still, you know, like, who would do such a thing? I think there's always going to be resistance to anything that has a technology backbone, or you know, an emphasis of technology that has a reporting of some sense that is not known to the consumer, right? There's always going to be that group that's just like, hell no, I don't want any part of that. And I respect that, and it took some time for even Alexa to become that thing that you'd allow to time your boiling water, and be accepting of it, listening to everything else in your world. And not a day goes by, I'm sure that it's the same for all of you guys here and listeners too, that somebody in our world doesn't go, oh my God, I was just having a conversation, and now on my feed, here's the thing that I was just talking to my neighbor about, and I thought that was a private conversation. So I think that there's so much of that continues to happen, that it's doing two things. It's driving technology forward and driving acceptance of it forward, but it also is increasing the fear factor, right? So for every one of the positive experiences that we share, there's quite possibly one or two negative experiences somebody else shares that makes it really scary. So there's that point. And then I think that the other thing is within our industry, we're so tuned to utilizing the new thing to make the current thing better. And that's, it's just sort of how we're wired. It's in our DNA. So I think that there will be a fast adoption and a fast expansion of the usage of AI and machine learning in our industry as we're serving consumers. My caution as a communicator, now having gone through several stacks of content specifically that was derived from AI, it still needs a lot of human intervention, because it is not speaking as a human. It is not speaking our language. It doesn't properly identify and define acronyms even, which, as you know, are such a big part of our conversation in technology. So it will require our help to get it better. And it's going to get great, and it's going to be horrible at the same time, until that learning has gotten much further along than it already is today. But to your original point, is there going to be resistance? Absolutely, and understandably. I think it's up to us in the industry, residential, commercial, all of us in technology integration, to really make sure that we're making the right decisions as to what we're plugging in, what we know about it, and what we're communicating to the other side as to what they should expect and what they need to keep an eye on and ear out for. Because it's that combined awareness of what's happening that will create a more positive situation and scenario going forward, if we're not really, really diligent in having a firm grip on the harness. What can stand to happen can really be, can create quite a bit of a bleep show for us in integration that I don't know that we can recover from effectively. That's much further down the road, and I am not a futurist. But that's my bigger fear, is just if we don't harness and control it now and learn how to corral it in such a way that it doesn't take out our bottom line as an industry. And I think that's a big takeaway. So regardless of your opinion on AI, machine learning, and futurists, I think listening to the conversation and understanding sort of the bigger scope and ultimately where everything is going, and then what's your role as an individual. I know what mine is now very clearly. You asked me 6 months ago as a communicator, what was my role with AI and machine learning? I wouldn't have answered the question. It's much clearer to me today, but I've spent quite a bit of time digging through it and identifying where it's good and where it's not.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for joining us. Michael, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Crestron, how can they do that?
Crestron.com, of course, or visit us at CEDIA. We're on booth 19.1. We've got a huge presence again this year. Some really exciting things going on from us. So, of course, Crestron.com, or come see us at CEDIA.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Jason, thank you for joining us. How can people connect with you, learn more about D-Tools?
They can go to dtools.com, and that's d-tools.com. They can also reach out to me at jasonkay@dtools.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at jasonw.knott. Let me just add one quick point to both what Michael and Katye were mentioning there, that I agree that AI is going to need to be oversight by an individual. I'm going to predict, as a futurist, that we just saw last week ADT sell off its commercial business and then focus strictly on the residential side. And we all know that Google did the massive investment in ADT a couple of years ago. To what Michael's point is, or your question to Michael, I see that might be the realm, again, going back to what I was talking about, the security level, that would be the company to be on the lookout for, where you might start seeing this introduced to the consumers.
Well, and they definitely have especially with the Google backing, they have the pockets to play in that space effectively.
Yeah, and now they're focused 100% on residential.
That is the truth. All right, Katye, how can people connect with you, learn more about KMB Communications?
Find KMB Communications on the web at kmbcom with 2ms.com. All over the social sphere, one version of that, another, and myself, Katye, Katye, McGregor-Bennett, same thing, all around the sphere. Looking forward to meet you guys out there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days at Matt D. Scott and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for the support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.